Hey everyone, Ora here. Follow up to the milestone video I did. Huge massive thank you to you guys again. The YouTube channel is still growing. So again, thank you, you absolute legends. Following up to that though, we need an alt. We need a ranged alt in particular. And after a little bit of soul searching, a little bit of number crunching, and honestly a little bit of honesty with myself, really, we came to a conclusion. And I'll tell you what the conclusion is in a little bit, but we'll start off with what our options were. So we had Hunter, Druid, Warlock in the running as the range DPS. Now, before we go into why those were the things, we'll explain why we ruled out the others. Priest unfortunately got ruled out because of its 2 healing specs. Now, having the ability to alt another role is good, but the likelihood of, say, a shaman multi-rolling means that I am still staying in the DPS category because I have the option to do melee DPS. The problem with Priest having the 2 specs, the 2 healing specs, is if the fight, from a raiding perspective, because a lot of these decisions were based around how they'd fit into my current guild's raid roster, potentially, for various fights and mechanics, and how they'd also fit in with Calamity. So, from a Calamity perspective, I'd pretty much always get the DPS. I don't have to worry about healing or tanking, because we have those roles covered within the group. So, from a raiding perspective though, if Shadow didn't perform particularly well, and it's actually better for us to have a second Disc Priest or a second Holy Priest, then I'm potentially likely to require to fill that role, and it's not something I'd necessarily agree with or want to do. I want to push and climb the ranks as a DPS player. So, although I'm happy to help the guild out, I don't want to detract from my end goal. So that unfortunately ruled Shadow Priest out almost immediately. Now, why did Elemental get rolled out? Well, this got ruled out more from a playstyle with Calamity than anything else. This was more of a dungeon ruling. The reason for that is because we have Arc. Arc is a very active and very good Elemental Shaman. And one of the big problems that we have in Calamity at the moment in terms of doing our Mythic Plus is the fact we are class stacking. But we're not stacking good classes. Stacking 3 paladins in an M+ group is not ideal. No, not 3 red paladins, 3 paladins, rather. So you have a prot, a holy, and a red. Which, don't get me wrong, is fantastic for group representation. Well, hey, all 3 specs are there. But in terms of what we can get away with, it doesn't really help. And it put the onus on combat reses to our engineers, being Stitch and Arc, in order to get combat reses off, which is not ideal. So having a second Shammy in the group, although good in that I bring different utility to a paladin, still not great because the utility I do bring is the exact same as someone else in the group, because I'm the exact same class. So Shammy kind of got ruled out there. The toss-up then between Hunter, Druid, and Warlock. Oh yeah, Mage got ruled out just flat because, truth be told, I'm not a particularly good mage. In a PvP setting, I am fine. I am passable, and I have managed to get 17, nearly 1800 in the past, pushing up with my mages. But in a PvE setting, I am generally too focused on what's coming next than my rotation. So, as a Frost Mage, I can play perfectly fine. Unfortunately though, Frost Mage isn't usually the go-to raid spec. So, it'd be fine in M+, yeah, I could get away with it, no bother. But it's not the optimum. And because I want to push higher ranks, I want to get the killing blow, like I want to get the raid kills, I want to get cutting edge. Like I'm still trying to push for my first cutting edge. I've got hundreds well, I don't have literal hundreds, but I do have a lot of ahead of the curves, and have been getting ahead of the curves since MOP. And I'd appreciate my first cutting edge. It'd be nice. So I need to play something realistically that I can do damage on, and that I'm comfortable with. Because if I am swapping off my paladin for whatever reason in the raid, I need to bring something that I am as equally skilled at or better at to compensate for the gear difference. And we'll get back to that particular point in a little while. So yeah, Mage unfortunately got ruled off the bench just because, honestly, I'm not a very good Mage. I'd have to dedicate probably hundreds of hours to getting my Mage up to a similar role. And realistically, going into university in a couple of weeks again, I don't have that time. So, Hunter. Now, I have a soft spot for Hunter. It's a class I have quite a lot of sentimental value for, because it allowed me to do something that was quite important to me during a time of grieving. So, always have a soft spot. But that soft spot is BM. I love BM. I have my 2 pets, and I will always play with that talent for as long as that is available. And that's fine. I believe that's also the go-to talent at the moment, but from a raid perspective, having spoken with my raid officers, Hunter is a little bit too squishy for progress purposes, and as a result was kind of like, don't go for that. So I didn't give Hunter much consideration after that. It would have quite comfortably fit into Calamity, but from a raiding perspective, it wouldn't have fit there. So that left us with Druid and Warlock. Now, we'll start with Druid. We'll start with Druid. Now, Boomy is a fantastic spec at the moment. It is very strong in both M+, and in Raid. And the Venthia build, kind of 3-minute build, is obscene, frankly. Absolutely. And utterly bonkers. Which is great. However, I am one of those players where, because I can multi-roll, I would probably end up in my spare time plugging keys, making sure I had the gear and getting whatever, but as a result I'd be diluting my skill set, because I would either have to be playing as healer or tank, or I'd be just cocking about trying to fill gaps. Oh, one of our healers haven't rocked up. I'll heal as resto, because I like restoration healing. I've always liked hot or dot playstyles. I like maintaining things. The more I have to track, and the more I can get into the flow of something, the happier I get. Especially when it pays off in a difficult boss fight. Because there's that point of like, I can't do it, and I've done it, and it's just, it's like those nerd screams that you see on like Race to World First. But I get that every fight doing something new. Like, have I got time to stand here and do this? Yes, great. But anyway, sometimes it bites me in the ass. Need to work on that. But anyway, from a group Calamity perspective, Druid isn't... It'd fit as a pure DPS, but I would pretty much never have to touch Guardian or Restoration, and Feral just wouldn't be touched outside of open world content. Which is a shame, because it's a waste of a spec. Don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against Ferals at all, but if I was going to play Feral, I'd just go log my rogue. It's just the way it is. So, kind of removing 3/4 of what a Druid can do, and just looking at Boomy on its own, the concern long term is that Boomy is basically just one tuning pass away from going from where it is currently, with lots of guilds wanting their Boomies, to basically being mid to potentially even bottom of the pack, based on how hard a tuning pass is. Or the fact that as a boomy through Shadowlands at least, I may have to keep swapping Covenants backwards and forwards. And that's not necessarily a problem going into the next patch. But it's a concern. Like, you will always be chasing the numbers in order to make your one spec viable. And it's not something that appealed to me. So, in the end, we settled on Warlock. And the reason the Warlock won, aside from all the things I've already mentioned, is the fact that I have, out of every other character other than my paladin, my Warlock has my most amount of playtime. By a substantial margin. Between my paladin and my Warlock, they probably account for 2/5. Yeah, probably about 2/5 of my total game playtime on this account. Roughly. Because my paladin is at 100 and... Actually, I'll tell you. My paladin is at 143 days played, and my Warlock is at 102, nearly 103 days played. My next closest character is my Rogue at 70 days played, because I pretty much played him as he was my thoroughbred main in BFA for the last 2 patches. And after my Rogue at 70 odd days, it then goes to my Druid at just shy of 40 days. Anything beyond that is lucky if it's got a total of 20 days played. That's not just necessarily on that singular character, that's across all my characters of that class. Whereas I do have a second Warlock, but that is a Warlock I made way back in the day to play with Kobrak in Warlords of Draenor, when Kobrak graced us. God, I miss him. And I was WoW content. Hopefully he'll return one day. But anyway. So, playtime was a big thing. The other side of it is the Warlock specs. Now, I have a very, very soft spot in my heart for Affliction Warlock. I love it. I love the dots. I love gaming it so that you can shard snipe. You're trying to maximize things. You want to, there's points where you have to do the maths whether or not a mob's going to live long enough in order for your agony to be worth even refreshing, or whether you just let it dip and save the global. That was the case in BFA, where it was actually a case of, do you bother or do you just start hitting mobs once Seed of Corruption's out? And now, obviously, with the change, we have less UA spam we only get the one UA out, so we get to play around with other things. There are a few gripes, like Summon Dark Lair, but that hopefully will be changed in the tuning pass that's due to come up. The other 2 specs, Destruction, I thoroughly adore. I have the Green Fire quest, which I did back in MOP, so I have the title as well, which is nice. So I always love that. Throwing green fire everywhere and just generally being a nuisance. Destruction is my preferred PvP spec, generally, especially in Battlegrounds. But Demonology is the sore spot of Warlocks, and it's not really that much of a sore spot. It's just, unfortunately, my Warlock is old enough, and I'm a sucker for pink Rose Tinted Goggles. But I remember the days when Demonology had Metamorphosis. So every time I play Demo and I'm summoning a Legion of Imps, although it's very, very satisfying to send them in and just implode them all, I do kind of keep thinking I miss shapeshifting into a demon. But that's not going to stop me from playing it as the main raid spec. And then hopefully next tier we might end up with a council fight or a couple more cleave fights where Destruction becomes king. And I can quite happily go from boss to boss playing what's best and not really have to stress too much about my Warlock. The other side of it is, with Warlock, is they're in a really good spot in that I can be Night Fae Warlock for all 3 specs, and their conduits are... they use different soulbinds. So Demonology uses Naya. Dreamweaver, Affliction. And Destruction can use Karain, or if I'm in a raiding situation, although I should really be using Necrolord for Destruction raiding, I can get away with using a Night Fae Soulbind. So, I'm pretty fortunate in where Warlocks are. Warlocks got really, really lucky with the way the Shadowlands was designed. So, we got that. It also fits into both the raiding scene rather well and the Calamity side of things as well. I bring combat reses, I have health stones, I have gateway, I have pet utility. So Kultharok, for instance, in Theatre of Pain, puts a very, very nasty magic debuff on 2 targets throughout that fight. It's a lot more punishing during tyrannical weeks, but if you summon your imp just before the fight, you can dispel that mechanic off yourself or off somebody else. It doesn't matter. Taking the first council fight, so the champions of Theatre of Pain, you can also magic dispel you with your Fell Hunter. So you can cover purges if your group doesn't have it. So same with Spires of Ascension, Imbue Weapon. You have a lot of utility available to you by using your pets appropriately. You can also, and I have done this in a couple of dungeons already so far while gearing, drop a succubus out to act as a sap with seduction, because last week was inspiring. Not the most ideal thing to do, because it removes some of your damage while you're doing it, but it made the pack easier, so it wasn't really a problem. So yeah, I would say huge announcement, but settling on Warlock for the alt of choice. So hopefully you guys will stick with me through this journey, as I will be spending the next few days on stream at least trying to gear the Warlock. Paladin content will still be coming out. I will still do videos here and there, and I might start trying to get some tanking videos done, because I'll likely be pugging more keys on my Paladin in order to get weekly stuff done on both characters. So we may start seeing more of those if that's what you guys want to see. If you've liked this announcement video, or if you have any feedback that you guys want to give me, feel free to pop it in the comments below, and I will hopefully see you guys over on my Twitch later today, because I'll be doing a Thursday stream as the Warlock, or tomorrow night at tomorrow, Friday the 10th of September, where at 6:30 UK time, 7:30 server time, we will be hopefully doing Sanctum of Domination Heroic as the Warlock, and I will be chasing those gold logs, because I've already got some gold logs in normal. So yeah, let's see if we can do better as a Warlock than we can as a Paladin, eh folks? Alright. In the meantime though, I hope you have a lovely day, and I will catch you all in the next one. Take care.